What if I told you that 20 years ago, someone may have stared into a campfire and wondered, what's the point of all this? Not where the next meal was coming from, not whether a lion was hiding in the dark, but something much stranger. Why am I here? Because believe it or not, existential crises didn't begin with philosophy students, office workers, or people scrolling social media at 2 a.m. The moment humans became aware enough to think about themselves, the crisis may have already started. Picture this. It's late at night. The world is silent except for the crackling of a fire. A hunter sits alone outside a cave. The tribe is asleep. Tomorrow will be another day of tracking animals, gathering food, surviving. The same routine as yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before that. Suddenly, a weird thought appears. A thought no mammoth could ever have. A thought no wolf could ever understand. One day, I'm going to die. Now stop for a second. That realization sounds obvious to us, but imagine experiencing it for the very first time in human history. Not as a concept, not as a story, as a realization. You watch people grow old, you watch them disappear, you bury them, and one day you understand, the same thing is coming for you. Congratulations, you just unlocked humanity's most terrifying software update. Because here's the strange thing, animals fear death, humans anticipate it, and those are two very different experiences. A deer runs from danger. A human can sit safely by a fire and still become terrified thinking about something that won't happen for decades. Our ancient hunter suddenly has a problem no spear can solve, no cave can protect against it, no amount of mammoth meat can fix it. He knows he's alive, and now he knows it won't last forever. But that's only half the crisis, because another question quickly follows. If I'm going to die, why am I doing any of this? Think about it. For thousands of years, survival was the main objective. Find food, avoid becoming food, repeat. But once basic survival becomes routine, the mind gets curious, dangerously curious. It's kind of like modern people. You finally get the thing you wanted, the job, the house, the promotion, the shiny new gadget, and for a moment it feels amazing. Then a few weeks later, your brain asks, okay, now what? The human brain is incredibly good at adapting, sometimes too good, which means even 30,000 years ago, people may have experienced a primitive version of the same feeling. The mammoth is hunted, the tribe survives, life goes on, and yet something feels unfinished, something feels missing. But here's where things get really weird. Evidence suggests that around this period, humans started doing things that made absolutely no sense from a survival perspective. Creating cave paintings, making jewelry, carving tiny figurines, burying the dead with special objects. Think about that. If survival is all that matters, spending hours painting animals on cave walls is ridiculous. A painting can't feed you, it can't protect you, it can't chase away predators. So why do it? Because maybe those paintings weren't really about animals. Maybe they were about meaning. Maybe they were humanity's first attempt to answer a question that still haunts us today. How do you make your existence matter? And suddenly, our lonely hunter isn't just surviving anymore. He's telling stories, creating symbols, leaving marks, trying to make something that lasts longer than he does. Sound familiar? Because humans still do exactly the same thing. We build businesses, write books, create videos, have children, plant trees we'll never sit under. We're constantly trying to leave fingerprints on the future. It's like we're all quietly negotiating with mortality, saying, okay, maybe I won't live forever, but maybe something I create will. And honestly, that's both beautiful and slightly insane. But wait, the existential crisis gets even deeper, because imagine realizing something else. You're different from every human who lived before you. Not physically, mentally. You have thoughts nobody else can see, dreams nobody else experiences, fears nobody else fully understands. You're trapped inside your own head, even surrounded by people, even surrounded by your tribe. You can never completely transfer your experience into someone else's mind. That realization alone is enough to make modern people uncomfortable. Imagine discovering it without language sophisticated enough to explain it. No psychology, no philosophy, no self-help podcasts, just you, the stars, and your thoughts. Honestly, that's nightmare fuel. And yet, something remarkable happened. Humanity didn't collapse under the weight of these questions. We adapted. We invented stories, religion, art, myths, traditions, communities. Not necessarily because we had answers, but because we needed ways to live with the questions. That's an important distinction. Most people assume ancient humans spent all day worrying about food. But humans are strange creatures. Give us enough safety, and our brains immediately begin searching for bigger mysteries. It's almost like curiosity is our default setting, which explains why today, despite having smartphones, medicine, airplanes, and instant access to nearly all human knowledge, people still lie awake wondering the exact same things. Who am I? Why am I here? What happens when I'm gone? The technology changed, the questions didn't. In fact, if our hunter from 20 years ago somehow appeared today, he might be shocked by our cities, amazed by our technology, confused by our cars, terrified by TikTok. But eventually, he'd recognize something familiar. People trying to find meaning, people worrying about death, people wondering whether they're spending their limited time correctly. The details changed, the existential crisis stayed exactly the same. And maybe that's the most fascinating part of all, because when we imagine ancient humans, we often think they were completely different from us, primitive, simple, almost alien. But the deeper you look, the more familiar they become. Underneath the fur clothing, underneath the stone tools, underneath 30,000 years of history, there may have been someone staring into a fire, asking the same impossible questions you're capable of asking right now. Questions with no final answer. Questions that have survived longer than empires, longer than civilizations, longer than written history itself. So maybe the first existential crisis wasn't a bug in the human mind. Maybe it was the feature. The moment humans stopped being creatures that simply lived and became creatures that wondered why. And here's the question I'd love you to think about. If you could sit beside that ancient hunter for one night around the fire, and he asked you, "What's the meaning of life?" what would you tell him?